Secretary of State Antony Blinken will meet with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in Jerusalem today as the U.S. pushes for a ceasefire deal. U.S. officials have said they're optimistic, but say more work needs to be done. His visit comes as Israeli airstrikes across Gaza has killed nearly 30 people in the last 2 days, including young quadruplets. Health officials in Gaza say one of the strikes hit a home yesterday, killing a mother and her 6 children.
This morning, Secretary Blinken back in Israel, meeting Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on what may be his highest stakes visit yet.
This is a decisive moment, probably the best, maybe the last opportunity to get the hostages home, to get a ceasefire.
After more than 10 months of war and round after round of negotiations, the U.S. hopes to clinch a ceasefire deal by the end of the week.
It is time for everyone to get to yes and to not look for any excuses to say no.
Last week, the U.S. laid out a detailed plan for a hostage deal. But while Israeli negotiators say they're cautiously optimistic, Hamas criticizing the plan, saying it makes too many concessions to Israel. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu telling his cabinet, we're conducting negotiations and not a scenario where we just give and give. A key sticking point, control of the Egypt-Gaza border. Israel says its troops must remain there to stop Hamas from smuggling in weapons. Hamas is demanding that Israeli forces withdraw. The families of Israeli hostages back on the streets, calling for an agreement to bring their loved ones home after 318 days in Hamas captivity. And every day without a deal, there's more grief in Gaza. Hospital authorities say 18 members of the Al-Ajleh family were killed by an Israeli strike. Among the dead, 11 children. Witnesses say the attack happened at 1 a.m. while the family was sleeping. The IDF did not respond to our request for comment, but says Hamas deliberately hides in civilian areas.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken is back in Israel today as the U.S. pushes to get a deal to end the war in Gaza and free the hostages by the end of this week. The secretary both raising the stakes and raising expectations, saying this may be the last best chance to get an agreement after 10 months of war. He met for 2.5 hours one-on-one with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. But we are hearing from Hamas that they believe the current ceasefire proposal on the table laid out by the United States makes too many concessions to the Israeli side. Secretary Blinken will travel to Egypt tomorrow, and that's where we expect these critical ceasefire negotiations to continue. Now, the United Nations is pleading for a pause in the fighting so it can roll out an emergency polio vaccination campaign for more than 600,000 children in Gaza. That comes after the UN says it has detected polio in the wastewater inside the Strip. And here in Tel Aviv, police say there was a failed terror attack last night. There was a major explosion, but the only person killed was a terror operative, according to an Israeli security official. Hamas is confirming this was an attempted suicide bombing, but it's not clear at this point if it was deliberately timed to coincide with Secretary Blinken's visit. Raf Sanchez, NBC News, Tel Aviv.